All right, are you guys? How are you feeling today? this this is the opening of something very special to you guys. Noting that we sit in a space that is kissed by the sea with a relevant theme for you guys. Yeah, so we'll begin to ask questions. Um, so Akia, you have been creating a space for people to kind of be themselves authentically, and I think it is kind of thought everyone who comes here, they represent themselves. And you've done that through a physical space, just coming to events. Now you're kind of extending that to the global audience. What is it like kind of changing the perspective of people to come into a space that is of acceptance and now have the ability to hear acceptance wherever they are?
I think that it is honestly it's a privilege and honor to be able to do this kind of work because the people have to continuously support you. The people nominate you to do this kind of work. So if anything, it's like trying to make sure we put a mirror into those aspirations and wants from the community. I think it's going to be beautiful being able to create these authentic spaces virtually and audibly globally because not everybody lives in cities or in spaces that allows them to be their authentic self. So a lot of us even still like I know it's a privilege being a Caribbean person living in Miami to be my full authentic self. There are plenty of people in our respective home countries that cannot for safety. So I think this will be at least the closest thing for folks who are queer, who are trying to discover themselves, who are maybe living even in towns where they don't even have Black people in those towns to hear themselves reflected.
I think that is a very interesting way of like creating this radical acceptance, creating this idea that you can accept yourself wherever you are, no matter the circumstance. And of course, we have things that kind of force and bear on us to preserve and kind of hide our identities. And so this is an outlet to not hide, not think about what anyone else has to say about your identity. And I think like I said, it's the beginning of something very special. And it is a continuation, because Masisi is something that has existed and has brought all of these beautiful people here. So yeah, and I actually want to kind of dive into the creative perspective. So Maka and, am I saying that correctly? Okay, Maka and Juan, you both are creatives in your respective areas. How does your journeys coming up as a photographer and as an artist play into the way that you create for Masisi? I don't know who wants to answer first.
So for me, as far as fashion, music, visual art, like those have always been like my main channels of self-expression. And I feel like Masisi like completely encompasses that, where it's just like a manifestation of all those three, like being a channel and a vessel for you to express yourself unapologetically through those. Yeah. So yeah, that's how it showed up for me.
Yeah, I think like as I started thinking more about documentary work and kind of like the history of film, of cinema, and documentary has like a really incredibly like racist and eugenic, whatever that word is, history. And so kind of like thinking about the role of like filming queer Black Caribbean folks as like in the ownership of the image rather than like, you know, how literally cinema started as a way to like convince people to colonize and to like rob people of their things and literally themselves. Like they brought people from like Greenland to the United States to like show them off in museums and shit. And so to think about that history and like how the camera has always been utilized as a weapon, you know, and to like have now like the reclaiming of the camera as like to be able to show that there are people who are obviously so beautiful, and to be able to own these images for yourselves and ourselves is so special and so powerful, I think.
I mean, I guess that's cute. I think, but you all three play a part in what is like the artistic, creative perspective through sound, through visuals, and through cinematography. It's like a linked kind of journey, and each one of you needs each other to kind of produce that idea or to expand that idea to work, the collective spirit. And so, Akaya, and creating what is this collective where did that really begin for you? What does the residency mean to you? Like, what is that about?
So the collective started with a different set of founding members that I'm still very close to this day. And I think they're all, like, they're not here now from, yeah, well, yeah. So I'm going to shout out the original artistic director, Terrell Villiers, the iconic Terrell Villiers, the iconic Helen Pena, who in general, Miami has been able to really benefit off of the labor from Helen's back as an organizer, as a cultural activist here in the city of Miami. So this wouldn't be here without them. And as well as Ashley Venom, an amazing force within Miami nightlife. And in general, like these three people who I did create this with, they're not here currently because of the same conditions that we're speaking to this day. Black queer people cannot survive in a city like Miami. Masisi exists as a direct action against that notion that, yes, the conditions may be this, but we can figure out with our means, whether it's rubbing two nickels together, whether it's going through the grant space, whether it's even just believing in each other and just saying, like, I got you, I owe you, figuring out our own barter system. I think it's been, that speaks, their non-presence at the moment speaks to what we're all feeling. But it's been beautiful to be able to find collective producers, independent producers, friends, and to bring on Maka like officially as the new artistic director of Masisi, and like have Terrell be able to pass that baton, and they have a beautiful relationship as well to like map and figure out how do we continue the visual legacy of this space that we're creating, as well as Masisi, like Juancy has been there from the beginning. They actually shot the first Masisi, so it wouldn't feel right to be in this next chapter and not have Juancy in some capacity. Me and Juancy do a lot of dreaming together outside of this. So yeah, it just felt right to bring them on in this venture, as well as the residents. I think they're some of the most exciting talent that we have in the city, and I am invested in letting the world know that like they exist. That there are plenty of black queer DJs, there are plenty of black DJs, there are plenty of trans DJs that exist. You should be doing the work to actually find them. So since you won't, I will.
Clock that. Wow. I mean, even when you think about like sounds, each one of the residents, I think, has an individual kind of lived-in sound, and they all adopt audio and music from places that you wouldn't expect, but it works well because they know what they're doing. And regardless of, you know, what the expectation is for what music's supposed to be, when you think about it, like I was listening to Jocelyn Hernandez. I don't listen to Jocelyn Hernandez on the regular, but you included them in your set, and it's like, wow, that's cool. It's different. It's unique. It's authentic. Not unique. It's authentic. It's who you are. But yeah. So I have a lot of questions, guys. I do have a lot of questions. Yes. And so how do you, as creatives, and also Akia, you're just a digital master, how do you guys center Black queer people or queer people, Afro, diasporic peoples within this project?
I think it takes a part of the work with Masisi, especially like we're really theme centered, is looking at our collective history and trying to unearth stories that I think queer people have had a direct influence in, but don't get the credit for. So I think that's part of the work, is knowing that there's a level of almost maybe ancestor communication that has to like find through intuitive just knowings and research that like, oh, this is my history too, and I can make it cunt, I can make it cute, I can make it beautiful and loud, and really make it expansive enough for me to fit into that space. And I think Maka, also I'm gonna hand it off, does a really good job within their work to bring in those legacies as well.
Thank you. Yes, and I also love something that you brought up is like there's no output without input, and I feel like just listening to people's stories and their voices and what they want is like a huge part of Masisi Radio. Is like the feedback is like, what are we doing if we're not actively producing what people are asking for, our community is asking for.
Yeah, it's like being a conduit for the conversation to kind of, just open it up. I think also extending this, giving more background to Maka as an artist. She does works that are centered around queerness, Black queerness. And when you look at some of the invitations for some of the Masisi events, when you look at them, actually the photo is like, damn girl, you ate that up. And it's like queerness, Black people with thongs and just short, like low-rise jeans and Black skin. It's like you created that. And yeah, I think it's really important to have you as a figure in Miami, but also in Black queer artist creations. It's lovely. Yeah. But can you guys more speak, or maybe Akia, speak to what's the relationship between this force and the residency? Is there something that you're providing to them? Is there kind of an ethic to where you're going with that?
So the ethic around it is that we are putting the CDJ and the microphone in our community's hands directly. So instead of letting the world define what they think Miami is, whether it's the internal advertisement that gets put out to at least maybe the powers that be in Miami that aren't making it known that we exist, that we're going to do the work in order to make it loud enough to move through any of the disillusions of what true Miami looks like. It's not just a Cuban haven. There are plenty of diasporic cultures and even the idea of it so long ago, I didn't even know that it was Black Argentinians that existed. And through the recent game that happened, the soccer game that happened, so much around it really illuminated that, we actually exist in all dimensions. There's not a corner of the world where Black people doesn't exist. So that also means there's not a corner of the world where queer people don't exist. So letting us be the decider of our narrative, just like what Juancy explained earlier, that it has been a colonial project through cinema and through sound too, to remove Black people's cultural production labor within those disciplines. So we're reclaiming that and saying it came by us, from us, and it's for us.
Round of snaps. But thinking about it going forward, this is the beginning of this program. What do you kind of envision for months to come as far as how that goes? Maybe from either of the three.
I think fundamentally the way that I see Masisi Radio is a space for literally queering radio, to experiment and to play and to do something different. I think there's a lot of DJs here, and I think that's really important, but I think that behind the music and behind the DJ is a really intentional thought process and a really important history to the music that we don't get to hear about enough. And so I really hope that Masisi Radio will be utilized, like Akia said, to give people the microphone to really speak to the places that they're coming from as artists, as thinkers, as DJs, as literally anything. Anybody here could be on this radio program and do whatever you want to do. And I really encourage anybody to reach out and to really invite you to experiment with what sound looks like and feels like to you, because I think this is a space for challenging the way that we think about not only music but even just the way that we talk to each other and talk with each other.
I'll also speak to that. When this project was presented to me, I know, Akia, you've talked about it for a while, having your own radio station. And I'm like, wow, I don't even really listen to the radio that much. And I'm like, what's missing? What's missing right now from radio? And yeah, I think the answer is that representation, me seeing myself or hearing stories that align with what we're actively going through and what we're experiencing. So that's what I look forward to with this radio, is like hearing the voices coming from the people that it centers.
And also, like, we're living through, honestly, one of the most important time periods of human existence. So it truly matters that, like, we are archiving how we are existing in Project 25, Florida. Like, it means something that Black queer people are existing in the state of Florida, because it's a intentional act to drive us out. It's an intentional act for Miami to not be a Black haven. And what comes with Blackness is all different kinds of socioeconomics, all different kinds of gender presentations, all kinds of just like, we're not monoliths. So I think the radio is really going to serve as a documentation of we existed here. You can't say that, you can't use statistics around, like, against us. You can't use the media against us, because we are the one putting it out.
I can't do anything but laugh. Like, I don't know, like, how to respond. Like, just like, yeah, obviously, right? It was like, of course, you know. Yeah, but as you guys are saying this, I'm thinking about, like, radical acceptance, just don't ask questions, don't ask for permission. I'm gonna do what I need to do. And then you speak on this theme of archiving, right? Like, the digital creations, the invitations are archives. The social media is an archive. The sounds are an archive of what that person is feeling that day. And, you know, of course, trained, but, you know, that's what they exhibit on this day. This is how I felt. But then you also, Akia, you jump around. Well, Masisi as a entity jumps around the country, really, from Ohio. I know you visit New Orleans a lot, New York, and other spaces. Is there a realization at some moment that you know that Masisi is something that is needed somewhere else other than Miami, given how important Masisi is to Florida? Again, you say Project 2025, queer erasure, identity erasure, self-expression erasure. Is there something that latches onto you when you go to those spaces or anything like that? I don't know if I worded that correctly.
No, I think you did a beautiful job wording it. I think honestly, like, and Rashly can kind of speak to it, that through these travels, I'm always reminded that Florida just is different. The Florida water just hits us different. Like, we really are traversing through time and spaces in a very unique kind of way that is admirable and sexy. Like, nonetheless, like, bitch, we look good. Like, I'm not, like, vanity always does, it's not the first, but it's definitely the second. So, so in general, like we actually celebrated Juneteenth a couple years back in New York. And we programmed with one of the biggest queer parties in New York, at one of the biggest clubs in New York. And from everyone that interacted with our sets, RIP to one of my mentors, Andre, who had truly, there would be no Masisi radio without his blueprint. But yeah, it was really beautiful to see that we can carve our space anywhere, because no one is doing it or reacting to sound in the way people from Florida interact with sound. And yeah, we're it. And I get reminded of that everywhere we go, that, nah, I'm it.
Cool. Yeah. I think I would like to address Maka just as an artistic creator. Is there relevance, or what importance do you see in kind of your art within this space, or art in general within the Masisi queer liberation space?
So I do think it's important, like you're saying, like right now, to make art that reflects the times. And it's like wild that, you know, we're still having this conversation about queer liberation. And yeah, I just think it's important to create things that reflect that theme. I feel like Masisi specifically embodies that queer liberation. That's always the theme and always what's in my mind is like reimagining the world through that lens. So yeah, that's how I see it.
I think I can extend that. Juancy, you're kind of a replicator of extending the thought process, extending it into a space that you can create. Do you have anything to say maybe on that part of replicating an experience or creating an experience that is unique through video, photography? Because when you think about it, you've been in a lot of spaces and recorded a lot of things, very important things. Of course, niche within, I'm thinking Theorizing Black Miami, just as a space that you recorded as well. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it just goes back to this theme of the archive. And I think just like being able to be here at this time and like being able to do justice to the bodies in the space and to the feeling of what it is to be at a Masisi party. Because for anybody who's been at that party, it feels fucking sexy. Feels sexy and beautiful, and I hope, I always try to just communicate that through I film it and I edit them too, and so yeah, I just try to communicate that sentiment always of just like closeness, togetherness, community, and I think that's the most important thing that Masisi is really about. At the end of the day, it's about not just about like, fundamentally, yes, queer liberation and like Black queer people, but also about community and that community coming together in these spaces to feel safe. Yeah.
Because I think about when I was invited into the space, I have very little relation to sound. And me even being in this space, I'm an observer and a participant. So I look around to be like, who's in this space? What are you guys doing? What's the music? But then also like, I'm here, so I have to show up and I have to do something as well. I think that relevance of space is really important, because if I did not come to this space, I probably wouldn't dress like this. But there's like I said, the theme of self-expression, the theme of stepping into a space and being like, I'm gonna put my best self forward. Like I'm gonna put who I am and not care, because I'll be walking through the streets looking fine. And it is just an acceptance. It is a understanding that you get. And sometimes you get it over time because people be trying to try you, but we make it work.
You're triggering them because they see something in you.
Yeah, it is an ideal that people don't like for some reason because they know that they cannot fuck with you. Sorry. Yeah, and so I guess to close, what I would like to do is extend kind of this conversation to this perspective here, everybody here. And I would like to know, what is it like being within this Masisi community just as a general participant, and also having a strong relation to the people that are here? One of the behind the scenes questions was like, is this family or is this community? But generally, what can you guys say about participating in the Masisi experience? I don't know if anybody want to raise their hands. The cord is short, right? So they have to come up. Yeah. Anybody want to?
Don't be afraid now.
You may.
No, but honestly, I'm so happy I found this space, because before, like, every time I went out, there was like no good music being played, like no one that looked like me, out there. So when I found this space, like I felt like at home. So that I'm very thankful for. So, thank you a lot. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else? We can. Mm-hmm.
Come on up.
Hi. I told you this story once, I think, but I remember finding out about Masisi when I was in high school and being like, right, I need to be there. But obviously, I was a kid. So, but I remember explaining like the tiered pricing system to some white kids that I went to school with, and they were like, that's weird. And I was like, you don't get it, obviously. But I remember like having no idea that something like that could exist in Miami. And then I left and came back to Miami, and knowing that this does exist here is like, and just standing here honestly and witnessing this is like, it's like watching the impossible happen before you, or something that you were told is impossible, like something that you have not been given the opportunity to imagine, like happening before your eyes. And I feel like this space existing here, and what I've been thinking about so much as you all have been talking, is like, you make me love Miami. Like you make me love Miami. You like, I mean, I love Miami anyway, being from here, but having you all create a space that is safe and enjoyable and fun and connected to ancestry and connected to music and connected to movement and freedom and a lack of judgment, makes me want to be here even more and makes me feel safer here and gives me hope for Florida. It's scary, guys, but I'm just like eternally grateful to be here at the same time as you all, because this is awesome and witnessing history happen. Thank you.
Is that it? Huh? That's it? Beautiful. I think we ended with some cool words, some really cute stuff. Thank you. And so, yeah, that concludes kind of this interview session. Round of applause once again for Akia, Maka. Continue to serve the people. Continue to serve the people.
And I also wanted to give a special shout out to Studio Monkey's Shoulder for, this can happen without them. So thank you for the support and the grant funding and allowing us to like really, have them materialize these ideas and dreams. So thank you. Yeah, and up next we got Vitro. And special shout out to all of our resident DJs again. Like, you guys are some of the brightest stars in the city, and we love you.